Back in the 16th century, Kotor was a bustling town. The port was thriving, it was so busy. Today, it is ruins.
Obviously, Kotor is not ruins. There are ruins here, but it has been remade.
I did lie, I'm sorry.
This is beautiful Montenegro. I truly think that Montenegro has the potential to be one of those really epic vacations. The ones where you continue to talk about it for years to come. That's not the trip we had. Don't get me wrong, we had a nice trip. It just wasn't that epic. The people are nice, the country is beautiful, and the food is good. But there are a few things that I would have changed. Come along, see what we did, and I'll let you know a way to make your trip to Montenegro a little bit better. Where Montenegro really shines is its nature. They have beautiful beaches, amazing mountains, and a diverse range in between. My friend Kat and I took a 4-day trip in November. This was our first mistake. While visiting in the off-season does seem ideal to me, sunset was at 4:24. Just a month earlier, and we would have gotten an hour and a half more sun at the end of the day. Because most of what we wanted to experience was nature, the early sunset really did limit our activities. However, we did manage to do some pretty epic hiking. We had really delicious food, and we got to see a good portion of the country for the fact that we were only here for 4 days. Next time, when I come back, I'm going to stay for longer. This is the train station. Alright, so we are currently at 20 minutes late, but there's our train. I see a train. We are not stranded at the train station at the Aerodome. We've arrived in Montenegro and we're headed to Bar. The train ride from Podgorica to Bar goes through the Skatar Lake National Park and over Skatar Lake. Since we didn't have much time here, I thought this would be a good way to at least see the park. The travel time was just under an hour and the ticket was only €2, so I thought this was a really great way to start our trip. However, the trains don't come very often and they're not very consistent. The views from the train were nice, but I feel like we would have gotten more out of the park if we'd actually visited. We had our first night in Montenegro. We stayed in the town of Bar. Here's the view from our balcony. Last night we went out to dinner. We went to a place called Fish Bar, had a delicious grilled fish, and then we walked around the town. We saw the outside of the Nikolai Palace. We also went to the ocean. We saw the water. It is November, and so sun's setting about 4:30 here, so a lot of what we did was in the dark, but it was still fun to look around. We found a really nice church, a few fun parks. Our plan for today is to see the water in the daylight, to go for a walk, and then head up to Kotor by taxi. The bus would have been cheaper, but the times were really inconvenient. Both the host from our apartment and our taxi driver gave us fresh fruit, and I think this might have been my favorite thing from the whole trip. Can we normalize gifting fresh fruit? On the drive up to Kotor, we stopped off to see the views of Sveti Stefan, which was a queen's summer residence on an inlet that is now a private resort. There's not a whole lot to do because unless you're staying there, you're not allowed to enter the island. However, it is fun to look at, so this 4-minute stop that happened to be along our route I think was a really good solution. We're looking for Guest House Nicoletti and we don't know where it is. Been staying in Kotor Old Town. Pay attention to where your accommodations are. I was having a hard time finding a pin on the map before we came here, and now I've realized why. So Kotor Old Town does not have cars, it doesn't have normal streets. The entire mass of Kotor Old Town just has house numbers. So when you receive that house number, it's not a specific street. So in order figuring out where it is, you can look online, find out which building is which number, and plot your route, because you're not going to be able to take a taxi directly there like we tried to do. This is the beginning of the Kotor Fortress hike. There's a little booth. It's €8 per person for a hike and to go up to see the fortress. Cats are everywhere, even on the hike. I bet he didn't have to pay €8. Hi, kitty!
Do you think the €8 fee means that you can also get a cat?
You can see the Kotor ladder here, which we're going to try tomorrow. It goes all the way up. How creepy is that? Despite this hike now being ticketed, we still see things like this, an actual well of trash. It's just disappointing. We made it to the top. Took us maybe a half hour. We didn't actually time it. It really wasn't very long. We're currently here in November, so the weather is fairly mild. A nice part day hike. We arrived today around noon, so we were able to do this before the sunset at 4:30, which I think was a really good compromise. Tomorrow we're going to try and do a longer hike and get even higher up. Important part of any hike, snacks. I'm going to time our walk back. It's 3:06 now. Let's see how long it takes us.
Nice. Let's go.
Beginning / end of the hike. It is now 3:33, so it took about 25 minutes to get down. Super short getting down. A few more notes on it. I read a lot on the internet that you can bypass the ticket booth. I think you could, but I have mixed feelings about doing that, so we went ahead and paid the ticket, and hopefully it's going back into the local economy. Do with that as you will. We're gonna walk on the Old Town walls, so we're gonna head up these stairs, but first, we got ice cream. Oh, these do not go. That's someone's house. Yep. We finished our ice cream. We found the actual entrance to the city walls. More stairs. Stairs everywhere here. It's good for your health. To our left, we have the Bay of Kotor. To our right, we have where the fortress is. I have to say, this is cuter than Bar. Bar felt like a city that's lived in. People live here, people work here, they're experiencing life. This feels very romantic to come to. It looks old, it looks unique, very windy downtown. Here, no, so there's a square here known as the Cat Square. And here we have 3 cats on one bench. There's definitely a cruise ship here today. Pre-hike snack. We're on the ladder of Kotor, and I suppose this is probably where it got its name from, is all of the switchbacks. So this is just the hike. This is what you do. So it's very steep, but there's just switchbacks, and so it's a constant grade. You just go. So we are at 2.6 miles. We've come to a point where I thought was a pass, but it turns out we just keep going. Switchbacks all the way. But you can see the ocean. So Kotor is down here on the bay, and then there's another mountain over there. We made it. We're at 2 hours and 42 minutes. And over 5 miles, even though we were promised this in 4. You can see down near the cruise ship, that's where we came from. And now it's snack time. All right, so we've done our hike. We're at the summit. Even though it's in the 60s, it is kind of cold. So we're gonna head back down.
It's very zigzaggy. That is the nature of the hike. It says it's a ladder, but that's not a ladder.
On the way back down, we ran into some pockets of rain. This made the path just a little bit more slick, so we took our time and were cautious. Once we were most of the way down, we stopped at a local cheese shop for a snack and some fresh pressed pomegranate juice. This would also be a great destination if you were looking for a shorter hike. It's raining, but maybe also sunny. Well, we will tell them that this is locally made cheese at the cheese shop. That's about a third of the way up of our hike. Flat ground! Alright, we made it back down from the hike. We made it out in 10.5 miles, which is way more than the 8 we expected, but still a really gorgeous hike. Today we woke up early to catch a bus and then transfer to a train to the Ostrog Monastery. We'll end both our day and our trip with some time in Podgorica. This was another one of the mistakes that we made. We didn't rent a car, and while you can get away without one, I think it would have been much better to rent. The transit here has really sparse schedules, and the timing could be really inconvenient, so we often felt rushed. Oh well, next time. This is the train station for the Ostrog Monastery, and then we're gonna start our hike up over here. Massive painted rock on the way. From the photos I saw online, I thought it was small. Cat for size. That was a tough hike. 64 minutes, just over 2 miles, 1,500 foot elevation change. This is the Upper Ostrog Monastery. This is a pilgrimage for many people. And I tell you, that was a tough hike. And it's hard to imagine that people do it barefoot. No cameras are allowed inside, so I don't have anything to show you, but it is so cool. You walk in the door and the back wall to the cave. I would highly recommend coming up here. Not a lot of views today. It's very foggy out. We're pretty, but I do feel like we're missing a lot of it. It looks like the sky might be trying to clear up, so we could have views, but the train doesn't come very often. A 2-hour gap, and then the next one after that is 3.5 hours after that, so it goes from 2 hours to 5.5 hours. So we're gonna go ahead and head back down and see if we can catch our train. These stone steps can be quite slick, so we decided to do a test. Is it faster to walk the road where you can have stable footing, or the steps? It turns out the steps are still faster. We don't want to miss the train. Beautiful view. We're back at the train station. It is raining down here, so I was waiting for the clouds to clear. Probably was the right call. To wrap up our 4 days, we spent the rest of the day in Podgorica. In my research, I found very few reasons to spend time here, so my expectations were very low. But I thought it was a nice city with really nice views of mountains and rivers. It was fairly clean. The food and drink options seemed to be really good and very reasonably priced. We went on a self-guided walking tour with some of the city parks, the historical ruins. We drank some coffee, and we saw a beautifully gilded church to round out the trip. So while our trip wasn't perfect, I still had lots of fun and got to see some amazing views. Thanks for joining.